What is up guys, Alex here and welcome back to another video. Today we are looking at the Panasonic 25mm 1.7 lens and finding out if this lens is right for you. So let's get right into it. So starting off in the unboxing experience, you get the box itself, the lens, and a what appears to be metal, no, definitely plastic lens hood, but the weirdest thing that I noticed is that the lens hood does not fit on the lens. So there must have been some kind of piece that didn't come in my box or I missed it. There's also some paperwork. That's pretty much it for the unboxing. Not too exciting of an experience, but wanted to tell you about it anyway. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and start by showing you what the 25mm focal length looks like compared to the 14mm focal length and the sharpness on the stock lens that comes with the Panasonic G7 right now. Alright, welcome back. So this is now shooting with the lens, the Panasonic 25mm 1.7, and I think if I've done this correctly, I might not have, but I tried, it should be set to around a much lower aperture than what we were previously using. Anyway, so a couple things you probably are noticing right up front. One, it's super zoomed in on my face. You can't see any of the table. Your field of view is a lot more narrow. And that's just because it's shooting 25mm, which is the full frame equivalent of 50mm versus the 14mm that we were shooting before, and that obviously means you can't see as much. The second thing you'll probably notice is the background is a lot more blurry, which you may like, you might not like. It's totally up to personal preference. So let's go ahead and start off with a couple of my thoughts on this lens so far. Now the first thing I want to talk about is build quality. Now this is a entry-level budget camera lens, and it is perfect for any of you guys out there who want to get the Panasonic G7 and want to start getting some product shots where you can really focus on the front item or your foreground item and blur out the background item without losing much clarity or sharpness. Now I'm going to go ahead and say that on a scale of 1 to 10 for build quality, this thing gets somewhere around a 7. It's not ridiculously nice, but you're not paying for that either. The lens hood is nice, and I've heard that other people get the converter so you can actually use it. I didn't, so it's pretty much a useless lens hood in my opinion. A nice thing that I did notice is that it does have a metal plate, mounting plate, so when you have that, it's kind of nice, just a little tiny upgrade, but overall the build is plastic and it still feels good, still feels weighty. It doesn't feel like some cheapo toy lens, but it is, in fact, you are getting what you're paying for. It does not have any kind of stabilization on this lens, and most 25mm lenses won't. It also is not weather sealed or proofed, but for the most part, you should be able to use this outside with not too much concern. Of course, you always want to play it safe. I'm not saying to go out in the pouring rain and expect this thing to survive, but with a little bit of drizzles, I haven't had any issues with mine so far. Now the second thing I want to talk about with this lens is of course picture quality. So let's go ahead and show some pictures right now. Now, as you can see in some of those pictures, it tends to sharpen the image really, really well, and blur for the background is great. And for the most part, I really like the quality of picture that I get out of this thing. But what I really wanted for this thing was to use it for video to focus on background blur. So I'm gonna go ahead and talk a little bit about that while it is playing. So right now you're seeing a bunch of video of the Panasonic 25mm 1.7 aperture lens, and this is shot at 1.7 aperture, meaning that the aperture is open as wide as this lens can go, and that usually allows you to, one, let in more light. Shooting in lower light situations makes that a little bit easier, and two, it allows you to focus on your foreground while blurring the background out. Now this of course allows for some really cool shots if you're wanting to do any product review kind of videos where the focus of your shot is of course the foreground and you're wanting to blur everything else out. So for this, I would say this lens is perfect, especially for any of you guys starting out and you don't want to break the bank with the super expensive lens. Although I will say this, if you are wanting to vlog with this lens, it's not going to work, as I can't even reach reach the lens right now. It's still a good, I don't know, 2 or 3 feet away from the end of my fingertips, and at that range, it's still really close to my head. So if I was holding it, it would probably be way too close. So if you're wanting to use this lens for vlogging, I would highly suggest getting a much smaller focal length of a lens. I'd look for something closer to the 14mm, as that's what I've been using the stock lens for, and at that focal length, it is really great for vlogging. It's really wide open. Now the next thing we want to look at in this really quickly is a focusing speed test. Now, in my time with this camera, I found that it has done really well with focusing, and with this lens, it is no exception. The lens seems to be pretty snappy and pretty fast, even at the wide open aperture of 1.7, allowing you to quickly and easily blur out the background on any subject without spending a ton of time focusing in on it. And of course, with the Panasonic G7, you do have the ability to manually focus and be able to check to see if your focus peaking is there, so you can make sure you're in focus and use the manual focusing ring on the lens itself, which I found to be pretty smooth, but overall the Panasonic G7 within its menu system makes it really easy to use manual or automatic focus using this lens. So as you can see, the lens takes some great pictures, some great videos. You're gonna get all of the foreground sharpness and background blurriness, goodness, and bokeh that you're wanting out of it. As far as bokeh goes in general, obviously this is not the prime lens that I would offer if that is what you're specifically aiming for, but as far as being able just to blur out a background basically and have the ability to do some great product shots at a wonderful price point, being able to have the equivalent of what is a 15mm lens full frame with the 25mm here as a camera lens just in your arsenal if you have a Panasonic camera is of course a no-brainer. For the most part, I would just say if you're interested in anything that has to do with any kind of product or family shoots or any kind of shoots in general where you're wanting to be able to blur out your background more and you don't want to break the bank, I would definitely look at this lens. It's an awesome lens and I've loved using it so far. Alright guys, that just wraps this video up. If you liked the video, feel free to like it. If you loved it, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to follow on social media. I'm on Twitter and Instagram and all that good stuff, posting photos using this lens and other lenses and cameras that I have. I always leave information about which camera and lens I'm using in the comments below the picture I use on Instagram. So anyway, feel free to follow me on all that and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I'm going to be doing a review of the Canon 50mm lens here pretty soon. But until next time guys, I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.